months without losing or gaining and without breaking any part of its machinery or stopping. मतलब मेरी जो वॉच थी वो 18 महीने तक तो चली थी. I'd come to believe it infallible in its judgments about the time of the day and to consider its constitution and its autonomy imperishable. मतलब ये कि भाई वॉच एकदम ठीक ठाक है. But at last one night I let it run down and grieved about it as if it were a recognized messenger and forerunner of calamity. एक रात जो थी उसकी जो वॉच जो थी उसने चार्ज नहीं किया उसको, तो वो नीचे चली गई. But by and by I cheered up, said the watch by guess, and commanded my boardings and superstitions to depart. Next day I stepped into the chief jeweller's to set it by the exact time, and the head of the establishment took it out of my hand and proceeded to set it for me. अगले दिन वो ज्वेलर के पास गया, उसने कहा भैया ये वॉच को ठीक करो क्योंकि वो ठीक करनी है. चाबी भरी जाती है. हाँ. Then he said she's 4 minutes slow, regulator wants pushing up. मतलब 4 मिनट स्लो है, रेगुलेटर से कहो कि फास्ट करेगा. I tried to stop him, tried to make him understand that the watch kept perfect time. But no, all this human cabbage could see was that the watch was 4 minutes slow and the regulator must be pushed up a little. And so while I danced around him in anguish and implored him to let the watch alone, he calmly and cruelly did the shameful deed. उसने क्या किया, रेगुलेटर को चेंज किया. उसने बोला भैया ये वॉच जो है स्लो है, तो उसने रेगुलेटर को पुश किया, आगे किया. My watch began to gain. अब वॉच जो थी गेन करने लगी. It gained faster day by day. Within the week it sickened to a raging fever and its pulse went up to 150 in the shade. अब उसने रेगुलेटर ऐसा चेंज किया कि वो वॉच जो थी फास्टर होती चली गई. At the end of 2 months, it had left all the timepieces of the town far in the rear and was a fraction of 13 days ahead of the almanac. अब वो मतलब इतनी फास्ट हो गई तक कि भाई मतलब कि 2 महीने बाद 15 दिन आगे जो थी वो हो गई थी. It was way into November enjoying the snow while the October leaves was still turning. अब वो नवंबर तक पहुंच गई जबकि अक्टूबर का टाइम था. It hurried up house rent, bills payable and such things in such a ruinous way that I could not abide it. अब इतना बढ़ कि भैया मेरे दिस थिंग मतलब आगे टाइम का मतलब मुझे हाउस रेंट वगैरह सब आगे का देना था, तो अब उसको तो फॉलो नहीं कर सकते थे. I took it to the watchmaker to be regulated. He asked me if I had ever had it repaired. I said no, it had never needed any repairing. He took a look of vicious happiness and eagerly pried the watch open and then put a small dice box into his eye and peered into its machinery. अंदर गया, उसने फिर अंदर उसकी देखी. He said it wanted cleaning and oiling besides regulating come in a week. उसने कहा देखो क्लीन ऑयल करेगा और रेगुलेशन वगैरह ठीक करेगा, आप हफ्ते में आओ. After being cleaned and oiled and regulated, my watch slowed down to that degree that it ticked like a tolling bell. अब क्लीनिंग और रेगुलेशन के बाद वॉच जो थी स्लो हुई, और स्लो क्या हुई, वो धीमे धीमे जो थी चलने लगी. I began to be left by trains. I failed all appointments. I got to missing my dinner and my watch strung out 3 days grace to 4 and let me go to protest. अब इसकी ट्रेन मिस होने लगी कि उसकी अपॉइंटमेंट मिस होने लगी, और वो जो था ना वो था. I gradually drifted back into yesterday, then day before, then into last week, and by comprehension came upon me that all solitary and alone I was lingering along in a week before last. और धीमे धीमे उसको लगा कि भैया मैं तो 2 हफ्ते पीछे जो है अब वो चला गया हूँ, ठीक है ना, क्योंकि वॉच धीमे धीमे स्लो होती चली गई. And the world was out of sight. I seemed to detect in myself a sort of sneaking fellow feeling for the mummy in the museum and a desire to swap news with him. I went to the watchmaker again. He took the watch all to pieces while I waited and then said the barrel was swelled. अब उसने फिर से उसको निकाला, बोला भैया बैरल जो है पूरी तरीके से भर चुका है. He said he could reduce it in 3 days. बैरल को कम कर देगा 3 दिन में. After this, the watch averaged well, but nothing more. For half a day, it would go like the very mischief and keep up barking and wheezing up, whooping and sneezing and snorting, and that I could not hear myself think for the disturbance. Half a day तक तो एकदम fast चलती थी. And as long as it held out there, it was not a watch in the land that stood any chance against it. But the rest of the day, it would keep on slowing down and fooling along till the clocks it had left behind caught up again. मतलब पूरे आधे दिन तो फास्ट चलती थी, आधे दिन स्लो चलती थी. So at last, at the end of 24 hours, it would trot up to the judge's stand all right, just in time. और 24 घंटे में जो थी ना एकदम ठीक हो जाती थी. It would show a fair and square average, and no man could it say it had done more or less than its duty. But a correct average is only a mild virtue in a watch. I took this argument to another watchmaker. He said the king bolt was broken. And king bolt जो था वो broke हो गया था. Right. I said I was glad it was nothing more serious. To tell the plain truth, I had no idea what the king bolt was, but I did not choose to appear ignorant to a stranger. He repaired the king bolt, but what the watch gained in one way, it lost in another. It would run a while and then stop a while, then run a while again, and so on, using its own discretion about the intervals. And every time it went off, it ticked back like a musket. I parried my breast for a few days, but finally took the watch to another watchmaker. He picked it all to pieces and turned the ruin over and over under his glass, and then he said there appeared to be something the matter of a hair trigger. He fixed it and gave it a fresh start. A fresh start. It did well now, except that always at 10 minutes to 10, the hands were shut together like a pair of scissors, and from that time forth they would travel together. The oldest man in the world could not make head and tail of the time of the day by such a watch. So I went again to get the thing repaired. This person said that the crystal had got bent and that the main spring was not straight. He also remarked that the parts of the work needed half soling. He made these things all right, and my timepiece performed unexceptionally, save that now and then, after working along quietly for nearly 8 hours, everything inside would let go all of a sudden and begin to buzz like a pea. And the hands would straightway begin to spin around and round so fast that the individuality was lost completely, and they simply seemed a delicate spider's web over the face of a watch. Amma sun rahi ho? She would reel off the next 24 hours in 6 or 7 minutes and then stop with a bang. I went with a heavy heart to one more watchmaker and looked on while he took her to pieces. Then I prepared to cross question him rigidly, for this thing was getting serious. The watch had lost $200 cost $200 originally, and I seemed to have paid 2 or 3 thousand for repairs. While I waited and looked on, I presently recognized that this watchmaker, an old acquaintance, a steamboat engineer of other days, and not a good engineer either. He examined all the parts carefully, just as the other watchmakers had done, and then delivered his verdict with the same confidence of matter. He said, "She makes too much of steam. You want to hang the monkey wrench in the safety valve." I brained him on the stop and had him buried in my own expense. My uncle William, now deceased, used to say that a good house was a good house until it had run away once, and that a good watch was a good watch until the repairers got a chance at it. And he used to wonder what became of all the unsuccessful tinkers and gunsmiths and shoemakers and engineers and blacksmiths, but nobody could ever tell him.